Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Hopefully everybody can hear me this evening. Say hello to everybody. Hey there, Library Lizard, Gallo, Backdoor, Boss, Monkey Food Garden, my helpful brother on the other side of the country. I always appreciate you, Monkey, taking care of me. Candace, Jean, Koi Lin, Spooky, Dirt Farmer. It has been a crazy day again, as always. Hey there, Dana. Um, First thing I want to mention is Facebook. I am not very happy with Facebook. Now, I'm going to explain to you a little bit what's going on. I post things on a Modern Refugee Facebook page, and I have for a long time. And the only reason I have done this, that's not monetized. I don't do any of the other BS with that whatsoever. I just do it as a courtesy to my viewers that catch and it's that basically catch my videos on Facebook. And I've done it for probably at least 3, maybe even 4 years. I will post my latest video on the Modern Refugee Facebook page. And about 6 weeks ago, Facebook started messing with it. They said, "Oh, it's not appropriate," or exactly what is the word that they use? I'm gonna read it off to you guys. Let's see here. Mhm. I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't think it was important. Your page, Modern Refugee, does not qualify for recommendations. So I appealed it and I said, your AI is wrong. All I do is post, videos that are perfectly fine on YouTube, and YouTube's policies are tightened up. And the first time they said, yep, we made a mistake. It's okay. Well, now today it came back, or yesterday it came back again with the same thing. So I appealed it the exact same way. And it came back, we'll review your page. We have reviewed your page and it will continue to not be recommended to new audiences. So all of a sudden, Modern Refugee is on the blacklist. So that is the situation on that. So I'm not sure I'm going to even keep that page up. And it really sucks because I have some people around the globe. I got some people from Europe and I got some people from Australia that actually catch my videos off of that page. And but you know what? I don't want to give Facebook any traction for pulling their crap. So that is that is what the deal is on that. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go forward um, with that Modern Refugee Facebook page because of that specific reason. Because why waste my time on it? Let's see here. Living the call. How you doing? Whatever prepper. Yeah, isn't that true, boss? Very much so. God forbid that you do something that helps out your fellow mankind, and somebody else can't profit off of it. Hudson Valley, appreciate you being here, sir. Uh, yeah, and you know what? I have really, this is the first time I've ever had a problem with Facebook. I've kind of expected it for a while, but I don't post any of the spicy videos on there anyway. It's basically just talk videos and commentary and skills, and we do stuff like camping. But this last camping trip here, the only thing that I can think of is I showed my pew pew, and that's what set off whatever their latest version of the AI is. So, and like I said, I literally did it just specifically for those handful of subscribers that like to watch my stuff, get the notification that I post a video on Facebook so they could watch it. And two of them in particular actually have some type of business Facebook account, and mine was linked back to theirs. But anyway, for what it's worth, I'm not going to waste any more time on that. Oh gosh, what else can I bring up here other than the crazy stuff going on around the world? I did have that conversation with Mike Tango Whiskey. I thought that was a pretty decent conversation. We talked about things like estate planning and how to basically get started on a 6-month rotating. My preps are for 6 months, and I've said this in a lot of different videos because that's how I learned how to basically prep, put food up and stuff when I was a kid. You put up enough food to take you through to the next growing season, which meant typically by October, November, you had your pantry full, you had your freezer full, you had everything canned, you had stuff in the smokehouse, and you were good then until like the following May, June, when you started to be able to get stuff out of the garden again. And, the first crops and stuff were coming up. And, that 6 months, that 6 month cycle was kind of how we put stuff up when I was a kid. And I find that, that keeps us right where we need to be. If something goes down, we can't go anywhere. We're good until we start putting stuff in the garden. I save my own seeds. I have, all my potatoes and stuff here. So I can, even if there's no greenhouses, there's no any type of nursery or anything around, I can plant, calorie rich foods, cabbage, carrots, just like my live stream I said last night. That's why I kind of did that. There could be shortages in these calorie rich foods, so good time to put that stuff in the ground. But carrots, cabbage, potatoes, beans, these are kind of the core crops that I like to plant because they're so dense, they're so calorie rich. Green beans are great for canning and whatnot. And then, of course, dry beans, potatoes, I can get 2 crops a year out. I could probably do it for beans too, planting peas. Peas are absolutely huge. Um, Peas are a huge item. If you can grow peas, that's a very good protein source. And actually, peas were something that was highly rationed during World War II. And that's how you can tell, hey, what are the things that I need to plant, or what are the things that I need to prep or put up? Look at the stuff that was rationed during World War II. Stuff like protein, eggs, meat, butter, coffee. These are the things that they really ration. And peas were something that was highly rationed because they wanted to use those peas in different things because of the high protein content. And we actually had around here what was called a pea vinery, and peas were one of the large cash crops around here until after World War II, and then it kind of moved out of the area. But they actually grew them commercially around here. And it's one of the things that you kind of don't hear about here in Michigan. Hey there, Prepper Book Club. Gnostic Nomad, good to see you. Squash. Oh yeah, squash, part of the Three Sisters right there. And my mom grew a squash. I don't even know what the name of it was, but it would keep, and it was about this big around. It was about that high. It was bright orange, just like a pumpkin. It was kind of flat on top, and it had its stem coming out. And those things, mom would cut the top off of them, and then she would basically bake them, and then scrape the squash out of them. Put a little whatever brown sugar in it or butter, and then she would use that to make like pumpkin bread and stuff too. And those squash, mom would put them down in our old coal bin. We had a coal bin in the house, and I don't know if I ever mentioned that. The old farmhouse had a small room in the basement that it had a door on the outside that you can open up, and that old house had a coal furnace in it at first, and then it got switched over. But that bin that was to put coal in it for the winter. Well, that coal bin was the perfect cold storage, and mom would put a couple of bricks in there, and she would lay boards across there, and she would lay those hard squash across that, and then that let the air circulate around the squash kept beautifully in there. And we would put squash, we would put potatoes, and mom would keep a lot of kindling in there. Mom would take the little hatchet, and she would make just pails and pails full of kindling and put that all in that coal bin. So if it was really nasty outside, we need a little kindling for the wood stove upstairs, we'd go out and we would grab a 5-gallon pail out of that. Oh, Sunset, don't worry about being late. Everything's good to go. Hey, Drops Homestead. Oh yeah, margarine was created because of the butter shortage. And you look back, and sugar was one thing. White sugar. You were allowed a certain amount of white sugar if you canned. So if, during the rationing, if you said, hey, we home can our stuff, they gave you, and I believe from what I was told, it was 27 pounds. You were allowed 27 pounds of sugar. If you told, the ration board or whatever they called it back then, you were allowed to have 27 pounds of a white sugar. So you could can your pickles, you could make your jams and your apple butters, that kind of stuff. And, so, there was a benefit on top of the food benefit. There was a benefit to canning as well. I love peas, but they don't give all that much produce for the room that they make in a small garden issue. Library lizard, well, I'll tell you what I do with my peas. I take 5-gallon pails, and then I go and I get they are a fiberglass post, and they use these sometimes for like electrical fences. And I don't know, they're about maybe 5 feet. And I drive one of those down in the corner of that 5-gallon pail. Then I take the whatever the 1-inch chicken wire that's like this, and I make a cage around that, and I slide that over. That post in that 5-gallon pail, and I plant my peas in the center of that. And then those peas, they spiral upwards. So, I got like a 5 foot high pea. Once it's actually 6 foot or more, once it's in the 5-gallon pail, and they will actually vine up through that cone that I made out of the chicken wire, and the peas will hang both inside and out. And then I always leave one bucket strictly for seed, and then the other ones we use for fresh. But even those ones that I use for seed, those can be dried and those can be reconstituted and cooked with a ham or something like that and eaten as well. And what I'll do is on the south side of the house, I got a little bit of a sidewalk. I will put those buckets along there, and that gives us our peas, and I don't even use any garden space in, because we put them in the buckets and we have them along there. But that's actually how I go about doing that. Uh, uh, Yep, Gallo, we're lucky to have pea farm around us. I wish they still did peas around here. On the south side of our town, for like probably 3 or 4 miles out of our town here, and off to the east, that area, they grew peas in that area. There was a lot of orchards and vineyards in that area, and they actually had what they called a cider and jelly works, and that building stood until about 1970, from what I've been told here locally. So if people had like a large amount of apples, they would take them there, and then they would press them into the cider form. And the same thing, if they had like a surplus of strawberries, they would take that there, and they would actually preserve that stuff. So it was sort of a local, just like a sawmill and a grits mill, those kind of things sprang up when town started. And it was here till the 1970s, and the town started here right around the Civil War. So you figure, if it went from the 1850s to 1970, that was well over 100 years that stuff was in force. Yeah, I'm definitely doing a garden this year. I always do. Mary, I'm sorry you're sick there. I hope you do well. I hope you get better. Yeah, and then Mary, I believe you're in New York. You got that storm bearing down on you too. So you have my prayers, my friend. I hope you're feeling better. Jules, hey refugee, winter going well. Fill the car up with gas. Yeah, we still don't know what's going on with the Middle East. And there's been the absolutely insanity going on in Mexico today. And Mexico is one of those places I have never had the desire to go. I know my parents were in Mexico several different times, before I was born, but I've had no desire to ever go there, just because of all the stuff that's going on. And then of course, I heard, they took out one of those cartel leaders, and they're basically running ramp. They're just running a rampage right now. They're attacking the airports. They're blocking roads. The pictures I seen, they got semis jackknifed in the middle of roads and they set them on fire so people can't get in and out of areas. They've issued threats on social media. The cartels have. They basically said, stay in your home. If we catch you out on the street, we're going to consider you part of the problem, and take care of business. And in Mexico, the average citizen can't own a firearm. They have no means to protect themselves. So you want a firm Second Amendment endorsement. There you go. That's the perfect one right there. It always goes. I always look back to the rooftop Koreans. If you've never heard any of the rooftop Koreans, the Korean neighborhoods during the riots in LA back in the 90s, they kind of went and grabbed their Daewoo's, and they jumped up on the roofs of their businesses, and they protected their own. And that, I believe that's every American's God-given right. And I not only believe that, I also believe that's everybody's God-given right around the world. That's an individual right. You have the right to protect yourself, and you should have the tools to do that. And that's, I guess, how I look at that. But yeah, the Koreans, and if you don't know what a Daewoo is, I know there's some people that don't know it. Go look what a Daewoo is. Go Google that after my live stream here, and you'll find out what a Daewoo is, and they're quite an interesting little thing. But anyway, Patrice, how you doing? Fava beans are a good crop, lots of protein. Around here, I we commercially they grow black beans, pintos, they grow little red beans, and of course navy beans and great northerns. So this is a large area where, and black beans have become more and more of a cash crop around here compared to what they have. uh, Montezuma's revenge, that's true. uh Uh, yeah, yeah, when I seen that airport, they were attacking that airport. Hey there, Rip Curl, how you doing? They were attacking that airport, and all those tourists, running around trying to get out of there, trying to get to safety. Those, I don't care what they what they say that the security is in some of those places. I have been to different places just here in the United States, and I see security lapses everywhere. It doesn't matter whether it's infrastructure or utilities or places like airports or sports venues, concert venues. There's been times I've went to concerts already, and there was like literally no security. I mean, none whatsoever. And then you got all the people, they're all drinking and partying and whatever. They're not thinking with a clear mind or a clear head, and all that stuff. That just looks like a big old target to me, unfortunately. Yeah, Karen, they grow soybeans too, but soybeans literally have no the human body can't digest soybeans. That's why that soybeans have to be fermented. That's why they make tofu over in the East Asian countries. But soybeans are basically grown as animal fodder, and they take that, and that's because they're so calorie rich. They use soybean meal to fatten up animals before they slaughter them, and I'm sure it's not good for the animals either. But and birds, especially, like chickens and pheasants and stuff, they feed them that soybean meal, so they grow like crazy. Great. I have whole 5 gallon bucket. I actually buy black beans in 40 pound bags, and then I divide them up. Sometimes I'll dry can them in just mason jars. Other times I'll put maybe about 5 pounds in vacuum seal bags, like food saver bags, and then I will vacuum seal them, and I'll make them kind of flat on one side so I can stack them up. But we use just a ton of black beans here, and then I can them too. When I get a little bit of time, I might pressure can 2 or 3 batches in pints, because a pint jar is pretty equivalent to what the commercially canned cans are. And we make black bean soup, we make black beans as a side dish, we make refried beans with black beans. And my favorite, and I think my entire family's favorite black bean recipe is you take a little onion and you take a little pepper, whatever pepper you like. If you like spicy, you can do a jalapeno, but you could just do a bell pepper too. If you have dried peppers, like I've done videos on drying peppers, you can reconstitute them, slice up an onion, take some of those either fresh or reconstituted peppers, get them in a pan, get a little saute going so they soften up a little bit. You put in a can of, or a commercial can or a home pint can of black beans. You put that in there. Then you add a tablespoon of cumin, a good teaspoon of oregano, a good tablespoon of chili powder, and a little bit of paprika, a little salt and pepper, and you just let that simmer. And then you can use that as a side dish if you want to do like chicken taco bowls, or if you want to put a scoop of that into a burrito and make yourself, a chicken or steak and black bean burrito. But then if you would want to make that into a soup, you could take a hand blender and you can puree that down, and you can make it into like you can leave the soup as thin or as chunky as you want it, and that's actually an extremely hearty meal. You make that with a cornbread, or you have that with some tortillas, you're good to go. Like I said, it doesn't sound like much, but it's got a lot of nutrition in it. And like I said, we go through a lot of black beans here because everybody loves black beans, and that's another thing. The size of the bean matters. That's why I really like black beans and navy beans, because they're small and they cook a lot faster in their dry form than, let's say, a pinto or a great northern, because they're a lot larger. They take more water to cook and longer to cook, where a navy and a black bean cook a lot quicker than some of their counterparts. Cody Johnson, how you doing? Rip curl, he's got it right there. Look at rip curls. That's what I don't want to say it because you know how they are on YouTube, but you look at rip curl there, he's got the answer for that. Hey there, farmer, how you doing? uh, Yeah, I am too. You know, the days, when I was my 20s, you go out, because all 20-year-olds did it, go out and party a little bit. Now I'm more of the designated driver type. I might have one, have a long neck after a hard day or something when we're sitting visiting with some friends for an hour and a half, have one long neck with a burger or something. But other than that, that's the extent of it anymore. I don't really partake in any of that public nonsense anymore. Oh, sure, boss, definitely. You know, when you got start seeing ingredients on the back of stuff and you can't read those ingredients, that's probably not stuff you shouldn't be eating. Anastase beans are actually, I've had other people tell me that Anastase beans are actually pretty good. I believe they are a red and white bean. Journey with Nicole, you'll have to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but they're sort of a red and white bean, and they fall somewhere between, in size wise, they fall somewhere between like a navy bean or a black bean and a pinto. I want to say they're just slightly smaller, but like I said, I could be wrong on that. Journey with Nicole, you'll have to correct me on that. Oh yeah, that black bean recipe, that is one of our, and I get chili powder in large containers, and I have never had a problem with any type of chili powder going bad. Now they say that ground cumin can go bad, and you can put up ground cumin seeds and you can toast them, and then you can grind them yourselves. You can get one of them little coffee bean grinders and you can grind the cumin seeds. But I've never had, we rotate through ground cumin quite a bit, but I've never had I've had some little bottles of ground cumin for like 3 or 4 years, and I've never had a little jar of ground cumin that I keep in my buckets in my pantry sealed up. I've never had any of them go bad. And paprika is another one. I've never had it go bad, so I imagine eventually it would, but I've never had any issues with that. Oh yeah, Cody Johnson. Three of my favorite preps: salt, sugar, and vinegar. And salt, sugar, and vinegar are necessities if you want to preserve food. Salt and sugar can be used on meat. Sugar can be used for your bread and butter, pickles, any type of relish. You're going to need some type of sugar in that, and then vinegar. Sugar is a preserving agent, just like vinegar is. Vinegar 5% acidity. People can make homemade vinegar, but then there's always a question. I'm sure there's a way that you can test the acidity of your homemade vinegar, but that's something I have never done. When I have made my homemade vinegar, we've used that like in recipes, like if I'm making hot German potato salad, those kind of things, coleslaw, I'll use my homemade vinegar because that doesn't really matter what the acidity level is on that. But if I'm preserving food, making pickle, that kind of stuff, I want the 5% acidity stuff to make sure that my acidity is up there and correct. Oh yeah, you can always plant the black beans as well. Hey Tammy, how you doing? Yes, red and white, size of a navy bean. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think the ones that I seen might have been a little bit bigger because they seemed like they were a little bit bigger than a navy bean for me. But there's always a little variations in that where they grow. Where do I get 40-pound bags of black beans? Um, the actual co-ops and stuff around here, they bag them up, and then there are certain places where you can buy them. And the one place that I know of for sure is actually, I don't know if you're in Michigan or not, whatever, prepper, but we have Amish and Mennonite stores around here, and that's actually where I get them. And they're Amish and Mennonite stores are good places to get 50-pound bags of rice, 50-pound bags of beans, 50-pound bags of bread flour, 50-pound bags of sugar. And they actually, sugar sometimes will come in what they call a bale, and that's 5 10-pound bags, individual 10-pound bags, but then they're wrapped up in another like paper bale, and that's another way that you can get that stuff. But I get those larger quantities, and typically they're a lot cheaper. I think the last 40-pound bag that I bought was like around $20 or $25. So compared to what you pay for a pound of black beans in the store, and that's about half price. But yeah, if you you get a chance and there's somewhere in your state where there's Amish or Mennonite stores, check them out. That might be the place where you can find those 50-pound bags of beans. But then don't be afraid if you have a co-op and you have any agriculture in your area. Don't be afraid to go into those co-ops and say, hey, can I get a 50-pound bag of wheat or a 50-pound bag of beans, whatever, because a lot of that stuff gets stored, and some of those places will sell to you retail if you go and ask. Uh, let's see here. Catching up here. Oh yeah, keep plenty of canning supplies on hand. Yeah, I was probably the only guy during 2020 that didn't run out of canning stuff because I that's another thing that I learned from, my mother and my grandmother, God rest their souls. They would always keep 2 to 3 years worth of canning stuff at the house. We just always had a shelf in the cupboard that had all kinds of canning lids and rims and that kind of stuff in there. Of course, the jars were always full down in the basement, but mom and grandma always had an entire shelf full of that stuff. So, whenever you needed canning lids, you just went to the shelf, and maybe once every 2 years or so, mom would go stock up on all of that stuff and fill that shelf back up again. So, and they always said you want to keep at least a couple years worth of canning lids in case something happens where you can't get, that stuff one particular year. That doesn't throw your harvest that next year into a tizzy because you don't have canning lids to save that stuff. And I'm sure that probably goes back to my grandmother living through World War I and World War II and all the shortages that took place, during those years. Hey there, Forest Girl from Alaska. How you doing? We have an Amish grocery store. This is Candace. We have an Amish store somewhere nearby in Homer, Michigan. They carry unusual ingredients too. And the other thing that goes good with Mennonite and Amish stores is they carry bulk spices. So if there's like you're making a lot of sausage and you need mustard seeds, you can, you go into like a store, grocery store, big box store, you get a little container of mustard seed. It's like $5, where you can go to the Amish and Mennonite stores and you can get an actual container of mustard seed for the exact same price. So, when I need stuff like celery seed or mustard seed, some of these ingredients to make my own, like pickling spice, I've done videos on how to make pickling spice too, whole coriander seeds, whole allspice, that kind of stuff. I will always get those at either an Amish, a Mennonite store, or some type of health food store that sells the whole spices and the whole grains. That's where, and I'll pick up enough to last me for a certain period of time. And pickling spice is actually a pretty useful thing to have. And if you don't have the pickling spice, have the ingredients to make it, because if you're cooking, so there's certain meats like corned beef, leading into St. Patrick's Day here, making corned beef. Pickling spice goes good with corned beef, and then of course any pickle or anything that you're making. Another word on corned beef: don't buy corned beef until after St. Patrick's Day, because then they try to clearance it and get all that stuff out. And I'm here to tell you, corned beef actually keeps quite a long time in a freezer because they're in those heavy packages and they already have their solution in there. And there were times that I took, and that's probably Rebel canning, but there are times that I took corned beef and I actually canned cooked corned beef with potatoes and made my own corned beef hash in pint cans. And it's actually, again, that's a quick and easy, breakfast some morning when you want to go out and get some work done. You want to spend time making a big breakfast. You open up a can of that, dump it into a pan, get that browned, and maybe throw an egg along in with that. And, you're good to go then for 3 or 4 hours of work afterward. What's the best sealer for mason jars? That I can't really answer. I've had some people get the attachments for the different, like the food savers. I've had people say that those work for them. And then I've had some people that have told me they use like the brake. There's like a brake bleeder or pressure tool that they use to draw and then there's some kind of attachment that goes on the jars. But I have never used one of those for the mason jar, so I don't know. I'll actually dry can, and that's actually some people don't like the dry canning, but like certain things that I know that the heat isn't going to matter, I will put the stuff in my mason jar. I'll set the mason jar in the oven at a certain temperature for a certain period of time. Then I'll set the lid in there. Then I will take that hot jar out with the stuff inside of it. I'll put the lid on it and the rim. And as that cools, that creates a vacuum and that'll seal it up. And again, I know a lot of people don't like that. There's a certain controversy with that, but I seen it done a lot when I was younger, and I have had no problems with it whatsoever. I did a video a long time ago on dry canning as well, so if you want to check that out, I give a little bit more detailed video on, or a little detailed information on that. I think the video is maybe 4 to 5 minutes long. Isn't very long at all. Oh yeah, green beans. That's my problem when I cook. When I can't cook, when I pick green beans out of the garden, they usually never make it into the house because I got half of them eaten by the time I come in. I love being able to go out and pick a fresh green bean right off the vine and eat it, and I eat it stem and all. I mean, I just love fresh green beans, and there's just nothing in the world that is quite like a fresh green bean. Oh yeah, corned beef, packaged corned beef, you should have no problem. Drop Homestead. You know, a year in the freezer for a packaged corned beef is usually nothing. Yeah, and Tattler lids, I should really try them once. I have never tried them because we've always used the disposable lids. But I've had a lot of people. There's some people that I know that I've become friends with online over the years. They swear by Tattler lids. Uh, uh, yeah, I don't follow the rules sometimes. Sorry, Drop Dead Homestead. Yeah, canning supplies are invaluable. We order bulk supplies of lids on eBay in 2020. Golden Harvest regular lids, 288 for $75 free shipping, some for wide mouth. And wide mouths are always the ones because everything is pretty much transitioning over to wide mouth because they're so much easier to get the stuff in, so much easier to get the stuff out. But I'd say 2/3 of my canning jars are all regular lids. So regular lids for us, regular lids are usually easier to come by. But things like meat and potatoes especially, I like putting those in wide mouth jars if I can, just because without that shoulder on there, that stuff comes out so much easier. Thank you, Monkey Food Garden. I appreciate that. Uh, Nesco electric canner. Yeah, those seem to be more. I want to say Ball is coming out with some type of electric canner now that's supposed to be like an electric hot water bath canner, but I have yet to see one of those in person. Oh, I don't really have much of a homestead. I just got a backyard and an apple tree, and I got a woods where I can hunt and cut wood out of it and stuff. And I've taught all my neighbors how to garden. Nobody garden. I was the first guy on in my little neighborhood here that garden, and now everybody's got a garden, and everybody comes to me for advice on this or that. And I mean, a couple of the people, they have far surpassed me with gardening stuff. Now they bring me stuff over, so it all evens out in the end. But we have some of my children have moved out, so we don't have as many mouths to feed either right now. Oh yeah, the same with hams and turkeys after Thanksgiving and stuff. Oh yeah, I've gotten pretty good deals on bone-in hams and stuff. And a bone-in ham, that's multiple meals right there because you got your ham for Sunday dinner, and then you can have ham and scalloped potatoes a day or so later, and then sometime at the end of the week you can use that ham bone and you can make bean soup with it. So and a turkey is almost the same way. You can have your turkey, then you can have turkey sandwiches for lunch if there's any leftovers, and then the carcass that's left, you can simmer that and make turkey broth and have turkey noodle soup or turkey vegetable soup then afterward. And that's how you get the most out of all that stuff. Mom would never throw out If we had a turkey or a large chicken, she would never throw out them bones. Them bones would always get made into broth, always. That's too bad, library lizard. I just had people starting to approach me there. I'm out there, planting potatoes or whatever, and I'd always have somebody approach me. And my potato patch, I typically, if I keep my rows tight, I can get about 100 hills of potatoes in that potato patch, and that makes us quite a bit of potatoes. And then I'll plant them early so I could get a second crop in. And then that second crop, the potatoes are typically smaller, but we'll get another small crop then that we get in November before the first frost. No, the peas, I had my neighbor give me some pea seed from the pea seed that he grew. I have no idea what the variety is, and I started planting that and propagating that, and I just saved the seeds from that, and I've just kept replanting them. So I don't even know what the variety is, but they're pretty quick to mature. And then they're a pea where you can eat the pod too if you want. I think you can probably any peas, but they're a kind of like a snow or snap pea too. Hey there, hen house. How you doing? I loved seeing pictures of your chickens that you're always posting. Have I made black salve since my last video? No, actually, I have not, but probably should make some again because I don't think that I have much here. I think there's only one jar of it here anymore because I ended up giving most of it away to people. There was one guy that I knew he had a bit of a cyst, and I told him that he should try that to see if it would draw out some of the infection. So I gave some of that stuff away. Uh, Yeah, hen house there. We're around the Great Lakes, so we've had snow the last couple of days. All the snow melted. Now it's starting to come back a little bit, but I know they got that big nor'easter coming out there in New York. They're going to get pounded there again in New York, the eastern states, and New England. Yeah, um, but that there in Mexico, I seen that, and then and you want to know why people want to carry a long pew pew in their vehicles out here in the country in the sticks and stuff. I'm really surprised that there hasn't been some type of incident that has taken place in either medium-sized cities or out in rural areas like that here in the States. I'm really surprised that there hasn't been something from one faction or another where some of that hasn't happened. And, I've talked to my local law enforcement friends as well, and there are definitely certain groups and individuals that are on local law enforcement's radar up here. So it's not anything, just because it isn't mentioned on the news or whatever, doesn't mean that these guys aren't thinking about that stuff because it is. I've asked them directly, say, hey, what's on your mind right now, and if you got good LEOs and you got a good relationship with them, they'll tell you. And my guys, they tell me, they say, hey, it's this group or that group, and these are the things that you need to watch out for. Of course, up here, especially in the wintertime when we don't have a lot of the tourist people going through, anybody that's new or unusual, they stick out like a sore thumb, and it raises kind of the attention level. Unfortunately, that's how you got to be anymore because there's just so many potential threats that are out there. Yeah, I found that peas work really good in pails, and I'm not a huge pail guy, but I like planting stuff directly into the ground. But there are some things like those peas; they work really, really well. Awesome, hen house, getting some more chicks in. I got a couple of guys. I would really like to have a couple of hens, but I got so many people that I know that have chickens. For me right now, it isn't really that hard for me to get eggs, especially in certain months when the chickens produce just eggs hand over fist. It's fairly easy to pick up fresh eggs here. Yeah, growing too many zucchinis. You can actually you. I don't know if anybody knows this, but you can actually grate up zucchini and you can use that in substitute for cucumbers in pickle relish recipes. And then, of course, end of the garden relish and chow chow. That's another video that I did. Chow chow was something that my father-in-law said that his mother would always make, and it's basically end of the garden relish. You basically make like a bread and butter or a sweet pickle relish recipe, and you just grate up whatever's left in the garden, and you mix that all together. But I have made both dill relish and sweet relish out of grated cucumbers, and I've given that to people, and they haven't been able to tell the difference that was made out of a zucchini compared to a cucumber. And that's a lot of times when if I need some zucchini or I need some relish made, like we have a split family here. Half the family likes dill relish, the other half the family likes sweet relish. So I make a batch of both. And there are times when I've already used up all my cucumbers for bread and butter pickles or spicy bread and butter pickles or whatever, and I've used the zucchini for that. And that's always been a great thing. Patriot Preacher, how you doing? Oh yeah, hen house. Yeah, there Mexico's going crazy right now. Uh, Yeah, roaming prep. I'm glad you brought that up, Farmer. Roaming Prepper did do a video. He did a live an hour or two ago on that. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I'll probably watch it after this to see what's going on. He's got his thumb on the pulse of a lot of stuff like that. He seems to be more in tune with all those world events than I am. I'm a bit of a bumpkin out here in the country, but I do keep an eye on a few things, and I still got my eyes on what's going on over there in the Middle East. There's a lot of military hardware over there in the Middle East, and that's why I did that. World Without Fuel video. I posted that because people sometimes they when you explain some of these threats, they focus on one, direct thing. Oh man, something happens. I can't get fuel for my vehicle to drive back and forth to work. But a lot of times that stuff, there's a much broader spectrum of things that can go wrong if there are shortages in some of this. Like I've said before, that if there would be a major collapse, one of the first things that would collapse is modern agriculture, because modern agriculture depends on so many inputs. It's not like the old days where you took the manure from your milk cows and your hogs, you put them out in your field, and then you use that to grow your winter wheat or your corn or your beans or your alfalfa for your animals or whatever. It wasn't like that. You know, there's so much, things like diesel fuel and chemicals and stuff, and all the fertilizers and stuff that they put on the fields nowadays. if farmers if farmers didn't have all those inputs now, yields would crash and profitability would crash. There would be total chaos in modern agriculture. And even, like the technology and stuff. I mean, there's tractors run on software. If there's some type of whatever EMP, or there's some type of hacking type event, because a lot of times when modern mechanics will go out to work on a new tractor out in the field, they literally take a laptop with them to diagnose what's wrong with that tractor. And if that laptop's infected with something and that dumps that into the CPU inside of that tractor, there's a good chance that it'll take that tractor out. So and I know I'm probably sounding paranoid when I say that, but these are actual things that can happen. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised they haven't happened to this point. Oh yeah, zucchini bread, any of that stuff. Zucchini bread, pumpkin bread, banana bread, all that stuff. Applesauce cake, all that stuff. That was all. Boy, takes me back so many years. That was stuff that was always made. Yeah, and that's one of the things when people say, what should I do to start prepping homestead? There's just you keep your gas tank full in your car. That's your first step, because cars nowadays, they 15 to 30 miles a gallon they get. That 30 miles from 1 gallon of gasoline, that can mean the difference between danger and safety. And if people would think about keeping their gas tank full like that, I believe it would be they'd be better off. And there's so many people, and then that's another thing up here in the north, people will start their car up, warm their car up, jump in with just a light jacket when it's 0 degrees outside to drive wherever they need to drive. They don't take into account what happens if my car breaks down or something happens where I have to get out of my nice, warm, cozy car, and then they don't have anything more with them than like a spring jacket or something. And that's why I'm so big on, you need to keep some winter gear in your vehicle. If you have cold weather on a regular basis, you need to have extra cold weather gear inside your vehicle because something can happen. You can have a flat tire at the best, and at the worst, you could have a breakdown or something or an accident. Now all of a sudden you're outside in the cold, you roll a vehicle over the ditch and you get out and now you're standing, you don't even have a coat with you. And there are people that do that stuff all the time. Oh, so glad I mentioned manure. They're starting to spread biosolids, aka human waste, and spread on fields in Texas and Oklahoma. That's not really a good idea because, human waste carries all kinds of nasties and heavy metals and anything like that. You excrete all that stuff out of your body and it goes into your waste. And then if you put that on the fields that grows the food, yeah, I don't know about that. If you feed your animals with decent feed, the manure is a completely different thing than something like that. Mm. Oh yeah, propane. Propane's kind of my go-to. I propane has so many different uses, and for the generator, for um, burners to cook with, because I have enough propane here. If I had to do even a little canning on my propane burners, I could do that as well. Because you got to figure if something goes down and knocks the power out, and you have a surplus in your freezer, you got to figure out what you're going to do with that. And I would just can it. I would cut all that meat up and stuff it in jars, and I would pressure can it, and then figure out what to do with it after the fact. Uh, uh, Yeah, I'd like to know too, whatever prepper, what is going on. I can't. There is a class of people that is running, that has run our country into the ground, and now we have to figure out how to, now finally people are starting to wake up that there is kind of an elite class that runs things, and your best interest is not the only thing they want you for is basically to do the work. They look at us like a oxen to pull a cart, and I've seen that in corporate America for your opinion and your questions and stuff. That means nothing to them. You just shut up, do your job, pay your taxes, and die. That's what they want from you. They don't want nothing else from you whatsoever. And I don't consider myself a useless eater, and I don't consider my family useless eaters. So I'm going to do everything in my power to help regular, ordinary people out, like pretty much all of us that are on the prepping channels on YouTube. But yeah, around here, another thing around here with the sugar factory, because they process sugar around here, they will actually take the beet pulp that is left over from that, and they actually take that out and they spread that on the fields, and they're reusing that beet pulp. So that's a pretty common thing around here. And then of course, we have hog operations, dairy operations, and stuff. Then of course that stuff gets and that's bad enough because they give antibiotics to the cattle and to the hogs and stuff. That's bad enough. But and the whole I think a lot of stuff takes place like that too that doesn't get tracked to a certain extent. People bending the rules every chance they get to make an extra dime. But yeah, I kind of want everybody to kind of keep on their toes this week and keep their situational awareness cranked right up, because it is a very dangerous world out there. And you know I don't know. Mexico is just there is such a as dangerous a place as that country is, and just tourists flocking down there, to warm weather and sandy beaches and that kind of stuff. It just no vacation in the world is worth what's going on down there in Mexico right now to me. I cannot, as big and as large as the United States of America is, there is so much stuff here in this country that you can go see, and you spend your money here in our country, and you support, my wife and I were tippers. When we go into a restaurant, we go into a small town restaurant, and we order breakfast, or we order the lunch special or whatever, we'll leave a $10 tip, because you know what? That $10 is going back into the pocket of maybe, a young couple that's starting out, somebody that's got a second job because they're trying to, pay for their way through school or pay for their vehicle or whatever. We like keeping our money here in our communities, our state, our country. So if I'm going on a vacation somewhere, I'm going on a vacation in the United States, because I want my money to go, help out other people in my own country, help them out economically. I don't have millions and millions of dollars, but I know what it's like to struggle, and I know what it's like to go without. And if I can help somebody else, that's kind of that's the position that me and my wife have taken over the years. And like I said, it's not that we've got like tons of money or anything like that. We just know that those dollars kept in our country, our community, our state, they help out people like us. So we're just trying to perpetuate that in our older age. Oh yeah, it has always been about control, warrior poet. Always, it's always been about control. Going back to the Rockefellers and stuff. That's all about the more they greed can never ever be satisfied. You can have the entire world, and that still won't be enough. They'll try to find a way to go to Mars and conquer that as well. Gee, who am I thinking about right now? I bet you all can figure that out. I gave a young girl once an ounce of silver as a tip. I hope she kept it because it was worth 25 bucks back then. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. Well, Karen, like I said, I'm not here to brag or anything like that. I'm just, I want to see, other couples. I want to see other people in my community and state. I want to see them succeed, and I feel that's trying to help somebody succeed. Oh yeah. There's so many, like there's county parks that I know of, roadside parks and stuff that are absolutely gorgeous, and they cost nothing. Like I was talking with the people I work with today, they've never been to the Cross in the Woods up in Indian River, Michigan. They have a crucifix. It's a Catholic church, and they have a crucifix that's like 5 stories high, and it's a free place. You can go in there and you can walk through, and they have little shrines to different saints. Like they have the patron saint of Native Americans. They have something from Francis of Assisi, and whether you're Catholic or not, it doesn't cost anything to just go in there and walk around. There's so many things like that you can stop and see that literally cost nothing, and and they're worth stopping and worth seeing. Uh, Backdoor. I'm in a position that I've been in more countries outside of the U.S. than states. I'll never leave the USA again. There's so much here I haven't seen. Isn't that true? Oh yeah, oh yeah. And Karen, I like waterfalls. I like going to waterfalls. It's called the silent sport because you're not making any noise when you're doing it. But yeah, I like going seeing waterfalls up in northern Michigan, and we've been to well over 100 waterfalls. I got a list here of the ones that I've been to. I think the last time I counted it was something like 120, and some of them you can't even get back in to see anymore because access has been closed to them because land has changed hands. There's a particular place by Christmas, Michigan. They called it Paradise Point, and it's a very scenic stretch of shoreline. And we were there in 2018, and since then that's been closed off. You can't get back there. And I got some really awesome video of the waves crashing into that over there. That's stuff that you just ain't going to be able to. We're not going to be able to see again. So it's one of those things. That's why I love having having an iPhone, have the ability to record all that stuff, and then some of that stuff I go ahead and share with you guys as well. I'll have to do that, Karen. Most definitely. Well, guys, here we're heading on just about an hour. I'm going to shut it down just a couple minutes early tonight. It's been a heck of a day. I worked all day, sharpening chains, selling chainsaws, selling propane. It was quite the day here today. Seemed like everybody had plumbing problems today. We sold just tons of plumbing stuff, fittings are the bane of my existence. I'm still trying to learn all that stuff, but anyway, wish you guys have a safe and happy week, and everybody, please, with what's going on around the world, please, everybody, have your situational awareness cranked right up, and watch out for yourselves. And if you have a gut feeling, if you see something and you have a gut feeling that it doesn't look right to you, it probably isn't. Always trust your gut feelings 100%. But anyway, this is Modern Refugee. Appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys always get some good information and some good fellowship and videos out of these live streams. I appreciate each and every one of you guys, and you guys have a good one.